Stephen A.
Stephen A.
Stephen A.
Stephen A. Smith.
Stephen A. Smith.
Stephen A., you bald forehead.
Max almost seems blacker than you, Stephen A.
You fat piece of shit. He came up to me courtside instead of meeting me in the locker room so we could talk man to man.
That's your son, bro. He ain't ready yet.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah! There you go.
There was a time when NBA players respected Stephen A. Smith. He'd show up at practices, talk to coaches, pull players aside for one-on-one interviews. He wasn't just a media guy. He was part of the culture. Someone who understood the grind. Someone who'd earned his voice. But somewhere along the way, that respect turned into resentment. And now, a lot of players can't stand him. Kevin Durant said he's not real. Kyrie Irving accused him of pushing narratives. Kwame Brown dragged him for making a living off tearing down black men. And Ja Morant's father told Stephen A. to keep his son's name out of his mouth. How did we get here? How did the once beloved reporter from Philly, who built relationships, earned trust, and helped elevate the game, become one of the most toxic voices in sports media? The answer? It didn't happen overnight. As Stephen A.'s star rose, so did the volume. The takes got hotter, the segments got wilder, and the man once known for journalism became a showman, the loudest guy on TV, the face of ESPN, a lightning rod built for ratings. He still claims to love the players, but the players don't always love him back. And in a media world driven by clicks, conflict, and controversy, Stephen A. leaned all the way in. This is the story of how Stephen A. Smith went from trusted voice to media villain, from respected to resented. Long before the cameras, the catchphrases, and viral debates, Stephen A. Smith was just a hungry kid from Hollis, Queens, riding his way into gymnasiums that didn't want him there. He wasn't a prodigy. He wasn't famous. He wasn't even good enough to consistently crack the rotation at Winston-Salem State. But what he lacked in talent, he made up for in obsession. When his college hoop dreams faded, he picked up a pen and never put it down. He started small, grinding through local papers, eventually earning a spot at the Philadelphia Inquirer in the early 90s. That's where everything changed. Stephen A. didn't just report on players. He talked to them. Really talked. He spent hours on the phone, pulled up to practices, got to know families. He understood the locker room. And in return, players gave him access others couldn't dream of. Allen Iverson called his family. NBA vets trusted his voice. He became a rare thing in sports journalism, a reporter players actually liked. By the time he got his first national platform at ESPN in the early 2000s, Stephen A. had built a reputation for being plugged in, not just because of his takes, but because of his relationships. And for a while, that balance worked. He could call you out, sure, but you knew he'd be fair. He had your number. He'd say it to your face. There was respect. But fame doesn't just amplify your voice, it changes the room you walk into. And as Stephen A.'s platform got bigger, so did his responsibility, and so did the temptation to chase the spotlight. But when you're the loudest voice at ESPN, sometimes the truth isn't enough. Sometimes the performance matters more. By the mid-2000s, Stephen A. Smith had become a rising star at ESPN. Not just a sideline guy or studio analyst, he was the show. He got his own program, Quite Frankly with Stephen A. Smith, in 2005.
Ladies and gentlemen, get up on your feet, stay up on your feet, and give it up for the Miami Heat sensation, Dwayne Wade.
It was raw, unfiltered. He interviewed stars, challenged coaches, and gave viewers a direct line to the athletes they loved. For the first time, a black sports journalist with no pro-playing experience was commanding national airtime, not as a sidekick, but as the main voice. But the show didn't last. Ratings dropped. It was canceled after just 2 years. Then in 2009, ESPN let him go completely. He was done, fired, off the air. The same network that gave him a platform had cut the mic. For most people, that would have been it. But Stephen A. didn't just bounce back. He came back with a vengeance. He returned to radio, rebuilt his name, doubled down on his delivery. Louder, faster, sharper. And in 2012, when he rejoined First Take full-time alongside Skip Bayless, everything changed.
He decided not to show up. Clearly, he could have played better. He could have been a bit more active. He admitted that it was his worst game of the playoffs, and I'm not about to argue with him.
That's when the yelling started. That's when the memes started. That's when Stephen A. Smith became a character, not just a commentator. And as the lights got brighter, the persona got bigger. The man who once earned respect through reporting started trading it for attention. More hot takes, more dramatics, more headlines. He wasn't just analyzing games anymore, he was driving the conversation. But here's the thing, when you make your name criticizing athletes on national TV every day for years, eventually they start pushing back. Because it's one thing to cover the league, it's another thing to profit off tearing it down, and that's where things started to turn. It didn't happen all at once. At first, players would just laugh it off. He's dramatic, sure, but harmless. A little over the top, but part of the show. But over time, the takes got bolder, the criticism got sharper, and it stopped feeling like journalism and started feeling personal. The first real turning point? Kwame Brown. For years, Stephen A. had clowned him, called him a bona fide scrub on national TV, mocked his hands, his game, his mentality. For a long time, Kwame stayed quiet. Then in 2021, he snapped. Kwame unleashed a series of brutal videos ripping into Stephen A., accusing him of profiting off tearing down black men while never having accomplished anything as an athlete himself. You sat up there and disrespected me for 20 years and got paid millions to do it. I ain't never said nothing to you. And Kwame wasn't alone. Kevin Durant once tweeted that Stephen A. was not real, just another guy pushing narratives for views. Kyrie Irving has publicly said Stephen A. contributes to toxic media coverage. Ja Morant's father, T. Morant, even told Stephen A. to keep his son's name out of his mouth after a segment about Ja's off-court troubles. The deeper Stephen A. leaned into his media empire, the more players began to see him not as a journalist, but as an opponent. They felt disrespected, misrepresented, sometimes even targeted. And while Stephen A. insists it's never personal, that he's just doing his job, the players started asking, what job is that exactly? Because the man who once sat courtside and earned their trust was now sitting behind a desk, yelling about them for millions of people to see. Somewhere along the line, Stephen A. realized something. He didn't need approval. He didn't need to be liked. He just needed to be watched. And so he leaned in. The journalist who once sat quietly courtside started roaring into a camera. The analyst who once built trust with athletes became the guy who tore them down for ratings. He didn't just cover the NBA anymore. He controlled the conversation around it. And perhaps the clearest sign of his transformation? Max Kellerman. In 2021, Stephen A. went on air and publicly said what most co-hosts would only say in private. I didn't want Max on First Take anymore. He said the chemistry was off, said Max wasn't right for debate. But what he really meant was, this is my show now. Shortly after that, Max was gone, and Stephen A. became the undisputed centerpiece of ESPN's crown jewel. Guest hosts rotated around him, topics bent to his voice, debate became theater, and Stephen A. was always the loudest one on stage. He wasn't a commentator anymore. He was the content, and he loved the role. He started calling himself the face of ESPN, bragged about waking up at 4 a.m. to prep takes, told interviewers, I'm not a journalist, I'm a personality. He embraced the hate, fueled by it, because in the world of modern sports media, being right isn't what gets you paid. Being loud does. And Stephen A. had become the loudest man in the game. By 2022, Stephen A. Smith wasn't just ESPN's biggest star. He was the network's identity. He was the face of First Take, the voice behind countless specials, and the centerpiece of nearly every major debate segment across ESPN's platforms. He was pulling in nearly $12 million a year, more than most of the players he criticized. He didn't just have a show, he had power. He reportedly had a say over production decisions, over guests, over co-hosts. Stephen A. could build or break someone's career with a single rant. And when Max Kellerman got booted, it was because Stephen A. said so, publicly, repeatedly. But then ESPN made a new move. They signed Pat McAfee, the brash, unfiltered, ex-punter turned podcast star with a massive YouTube following and a completely different vibe. He didn't do suits. He didn't shout. He rolled out of bed, threw on a tank top, and started hosting a daily live show with NFL legends on speed dial. And just like that, ESPN had two alphas. The company swore there was no beef, but you could feel it. The show aired in the same time block as First Take. They started pulling views from similar audiences. He wasn't afraid to throw shade either, calling out ESPN's leadership on air. I've never been around a company with so many people afraid to speak freely, except maybe a few suits. He didn't say Stephen A.'s name. He didn't need to. Stephen A. never responded directly, but insiders started whispering about the tension. Two powerhouses with different audiences, different styles, and one massive network between them. Because even at the top, The spotlight is never safe. And in a building full of big personalities, respect isn't given. It's earned every day. For years, Stephen A. Smith walked a delicate line when it came to LeBron James. He'd praise him one minute, then pick him apart the next. He questioned his leadership, his killer instinct, his finals record. But through it all, LeBron kept quiet. Let the man talk. Let the media spin. He didn't need to clap back. Until 2025, when Stephen A. crossed a line. It started like usual, a segment on First Take, debating LeBron's legacy. Again. But this time, Stephen A. didn't just critique the man, he brought up his son. Bronny James doesn't look ready. He's not a one and done. He's not his father, and we need to stop pretending he is. It wasn't just a scouting opinion. It felt like a shot. Not at Bronny the player, but at LeBron the father. And that's when LeBron fired back. Later the same day, he posted on Instagram, "Stephen A's been doing this for years. Loud and wrong. You don't know me. Don't speak on my family. Clown behavior." He didn't mince words. This wasn't about legacy or basketball anymore. It was personal. NBA players rallied around LeBron. Dwayne Wade, CJ McCollum, and Draymond Green reposted the story with support. The narrative shifted. Stephen A. had gone too far. Again. The next morning, Stephen A. doubled down. "I said what I said. I've been covering this game 30 years. I'm not backing down from anyone, not even LeBron." The feud was real now. And for many fans watching, this wasn't just another hot take. It was the moment Stephen A. finally alienated the one player who had always given him grace. Critics called it desperate. Players called it disrespectful. Because when you start criticizing someone's kid on national TV, the game changes. And for Stephen A., it wasn't just the respect that disappeared. It was the line between sports commentary and spectacle. At this point, it's not about whether Stephen A. Smith is right or wrong. It's about one simple truth. You're going to tune in. Whether he's debating first-day guests, calling out superstars, or trending for the wrong reasons, Stephen A. has mastered the art of attention. Every clip is a headline. Every rant is a meme. Every moment adds another chapter to his mythology. And he knows it. He wakes up at 4 a.m., runs, writes, studies, preps. He trains for his shows like it's Game 7 of the finals. He's built for this, built for battle. And in his mind, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. But there's a cost to winning that way. The trust? Gone. The relationships? Strained or shattered. And the players? The ones who once gave him their time, their truth, their respect. They've turned. To them, he's no longer a voice of the culture. He's a performer, a provocateur, a brand. And when the most respected player in the world, LeBron James, tells you to keep his family's name out of your mouth, that's not just a feud, that's a statement. Still, Stephen A. doesn't flinch. He'll show up tomorrow, do the same show, the same way with the same fire. Because in his eyes, this isn't about being loved. It's about being undeniable. Stephen A. Smith didn't just rise to the top of sports media, he changed it. And whether it made him toxic, controversial, or even hated, it also made him unstoppable.